Welcome to The World Awaits.
Travel tales to inspire your wanderlust.
I'm Kirsty Bedford, journalist, editor and travel writer.
And I'm Belinda Jackson, author, travel journalist and columnist, and we're your weekly co-hosts.
Welcome back to The World Awaits. How are you all?
Hi everyone, how's your week been, Kirsty?
It's been a busy one, catching up after my incredible trip to New Zealand's very far north, which we'll be talking about in our next episode. So make sure you're subscribed, if not already, so you don't miss that one. And you can also read my story about the experience at carryon.com.au. Just scroll down to the luxury section. How was your week, Belle?
Oh, well, as this goes to air, I will be in New South Wales in the Hunter Valley for the annual conference of the Australian Society of Travel Writers. They're holding it at the Oaks Cypress Lakes Resort this year. And while all that's going on, I'm planning a trip to Tokyo. It's kind of a bit overwhelming how much there is to do in one city. So if you've got any tips or things that I can't miss, drop me a line at hello@theworldawaits.au. I will be flying with Virgin Australia up to Tokyo. I might even be going through via Cairns, which is a route that they're actually winding down. So I'll report back on that one.
I love Tokyo. I only passed through. I wish I had more time to stay there when I went to Shikoku Island, but love Japan as everyone else in the world does.
Everyone loves Japan.
And speaking of travel inspiration, Lonely Planet's annual Best in Travel list is out now, and it is a fascinating list of suggestions of where to travel in 2025. So they scour the world, talking to their global team of contributors and travel professionals who explain the reasons for their suggestions.
Yeah, so the list has 3 parts. It's got best country, best region, and best city. And the best country is most likely one you have never considered travelling to. It is, drum roll please, the Central African country of Cameroon. Cameroon. Have you been to Cameroon, Kirsty?
I can't say I have. And if either of us had been to Cameroon, I'm sure it would be you, given your intrepid travels belt. But why should you go? Well, Lonely Planet says it's volcanoes, rainforests, and beaches are the draw cards. And it's also home to gorillas. Oh, this is making me want to go. Forest elephants and mandrills, who are a type of old world monkey. So it's actually followed on the list by Lithuania and much closer to home, Fiji, which they say, as many listeners will know, is a draw card because of its beautiful waters, snorkeling and diving, and of course the people. And Fiji is always a winner. So we've actually had some of our best family holidays there. And for those who don't have kids and don't want to go across just to experience those, kids clubs are amazing. Although I don't use kids clubs, but even, just the amazing facilities and the great resorts that are there for kids, or don't actually want to be around little kids, which we don't anymore now that our kids are a bit older. There are actually many great adults-only retreats. So I can't list them all because obviously we don't have time, but one of my favourites is Liku Liku Lagoon Resort, which is in the Mamanukas, and there's a gorgeous little uninhabited island nearby. So Liku Liku's got overwater bungalows, and it's also got garden villas, and it's just such a gorgeous spot. And if you stay there, then you can go to this little island nearby where you can see the most spectacular sunrise, and you can snorkel around it, and you can get a little boat over to it. You can actually kayak over to it, it's that close. It's called Morthew Island or Honeymoon Island, and only those staying on Liku Liku can use it. So how cool is that?
Well, interestingly, Kirsty, one of the reasons why the Lonely Planet said they should be going is not necessarily for the fabulous resorts, but it's for the burgeoning ecotourism and village tourism that's happening in Fiji, and which I think is really interesting because traditionally it's been really hard to get hold of, to get access into villages unless they're quite staged. And I've done that a few times, but traveling up north, up in Savu and places like that, and even down in Kandavo, I've done a couple of those, the extreme islands above and below the big island. I think that is something that's going to become much more of a reason to go to Fiji in the future. And it's something that it just hasn't taken off yet, but I reckon that's going to be happening soon. So, yep, we go there, we have the gorgeous resorts, we have the beautiful sunsets, but we also start going for that third reason, which is the people.
And we did that, and we did that too. We took our kids to a village to experience it. It was completely authentic and beautiful. And I still have a photo of a 3 or 4-year-old boy sitting on the riverbank holding a machete.
Need. Okay. Now the next section was the best regions, and they were just as interesting. The top pick was the lowlands of South Carolina and Georgia in the USA, which are headed up by the cities of Charleston and Savannah for their vibrant food scene. And there's also the new International African American Museum that has opened there. And I've got to say, I always wanted to go to Savannah after I read Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil, and it is a non-fiction thriller. I think Clint, it might have even been Clint Eastwood's
non-fiction thriller.
They do. Hey,
non-fiction thriller? Did you say?
Yeah, because it's a murder and it's sensational, and it really it's amazing. If you haven't read the book, read the book. If you don't want to read the book, see the movie. Clint Eastwood directed it. It's got Jude Law when he was very young and devastatingly handsome in it. So there you go. So that's South Carolina and Georgia. And then the runners-up in the region section are the Terai region in Nepal, which is a step away from that whole big mountain scene. There's another province in Panama, and in fifth place, we've got lovely Launceston and the Tamar Valley, which you're going to for the wineries, of course, and also a walk through Cataract Gorge and some seriously great dining. I mean, Launceston is a UNESCO City of Gastronomy, right?
Amazing part of the world. So pretty. So beautiful. It actually reminds me a lot of New Zealand. And the best cities, Toulouse in France for its gorgeous canal boats, the reopening of the 14th century convent, which is now the Musée d'Augustin, and for its music, because it is actually also a UNESCO City of Music rather than gastronomy, although I'm sure it's right up there for that as well. And in second place is Puducherry in southern India, famous for its gorgeous white town and 1,000-year-old column art, and Bankso, a winter resort town in Bulgaria. Did you visit Bankso when you were there, Belle?
No, I did not. I mean, the time to visit Bankso is in the ski season, December to April, when it becomes one of Europe's cheapest ski destinations. But I think generally Bulgaria is so underrated. If you want to hear all of my raves on this one, I'll save your ears now, but you can jump back 2 episodes on the podcast and hear me raving about why you should put this Eastern European country on your to-do visit list. To-do visit list? Does that make sense? To put on your must-travel list. There we go. You're listening to The World Awaits. Subscribe through our website at theworldawaits.au.
Cruise season has kicked off, and this week we're going cruising with Honida Beram, who is the queen of cruise, a cruise columnist and owner of the successful online cruise community Cruising with Honey. Honida delves into how to choose the right cruise for you and gives us an insight into life sailing the high seas. Welcome to the show, Honida.
Hi, thanks for having me.
It's so great to have you with us to talk about all things cruise. So tell us first up a bit about your background and how you got into the world of cruise.
Yeah, well, it's been a bit of a journey, and I'm nearly coming up 9 years, but trying to make this long story quite short, I've been a journalist for about 30 years now, and I never had the opportunity to write anything that was, fun or travel related or anything that kind of was different to politics or health or, things that were quite hard news over my career. And about, as I said, nearly 9 years ago, I wanted to take my young daughters and my husband on a holiday. And we did some research and thought, okay, they're young. We want a fuss-free holiday. Let's take a cruise. And, being a writer as you are, I thought, what a great opportunity to have this kind of outlet for my creativity while I'm cruising. Decided to start a blog and open a Facebook page. And here we are. It's taken over my life. I've seen the 7 continents of the world. I've experienced places I never could have imagined. And I'm utterly, utterly privileged for this whole journey.
Tell us a little bit about your community.
Look, I use the word privileged a lot because it's quite humbling when you have a community on a social media platform that's so ingrained in your life. Facebook's a little bit different to other platforms that have emerged over more recent years, such as Instagram and TikTok and so forth, we actually can build a community with people because they're living with you and interacting with you, and I'm interacting with them. So they really feel like they're part of my life. I feel as if they're a part of my life as much as I'm a part of theirs, and they share their stories and they give me that opportunity to breathe and to be myself and authentically be myself and show them what it's like to travel the world. And I honestly want them along there with me.
And there's obviously a really growing audience for cruise. So tell us, what's your favourite way to cruise, or what are some of the best cruises that you've done?
Oh gosh, well, definitely the one we went on together, right, Kirsty, in Norway. That was pretty fabulous. It was amazing. Look, the way I love to travel is to cruise, I should say. It depends on where I'm going. I mean, I've really embraced the solo cruise in most recent years, primarily because it is quote unquote work, but also it's given me that freedom and also that confidence to travel on my own. I never traveled on my own before. The first time I went to Europe was in 2022. So it's given me confidence as a woman that I can rely on my map reading skills. I know that sounds cliched, but also that I can do this. It's a really odd thing to say that in my late 40s, that I'm confident to travel on my own, and cruising has given me that prize, really. So cruising is for me this opportunity to experience a freedom of sorts, and it's just such a fabulous way to see the world.
And for those who want to go cruising but don't know, because there are so many options out there now, and there are so many cruise companies, and there's so many different ways to cruise. So how do you go about, for someone who wants to go on a cruise but really doesn't know, how do they choose the right cruise for them?
Choosing the right cruise is imperative, especially if it's your first time, because you might choose a cruise that you have a terrible experience with and you'll vow never to cruise again. The first thing to really understand is to know who you're cruising with. If you're cruising with young children, you need a cruise that's going to keep them occupied and entertained as much as yourself. If you're cruising with just your partner, something that you can do, you might have a romantic or adventurous side of things that you can go and explore together without having to think about anybody else. If it's an intergenerational cruise, which is what I really love to do the most, I take my parents, I take my nephews, I take my siblings, and I take my children and partner. And you need to find a cruise that's going to accommodate everybody's likes. And that's the great thing about cruising. You can do as little and as much as you want to do.
So what are some examples? What are some great cruises, say, for families? And what are the options on board that make it such a great holiday?
Well, for families, you're really looking at ocean cruising. And when I mean ocean cruising, it's those, you might call them those large mega cruise liners out there. And really for the reason that there are multiple food options, there are multiple entertainment activities to do on board, and you are stopping at different ports almost every day. And there are things to do on land as well. So for a family, having multiple options is your best bet.
And so what are some of the things that you can do if you take kids on a cruise? Like what are some of the things or some of the best cruises that you think are suited to families?
Well, when my daughters were young, they didn't like to go to kids club because they wanted to spend time with myself and my husband. But for other families, going to kids club gives parents a break, and it also gives kids a chance to play and make friends with their peers. You know, these big cruise lines at the moment have got things that are out of this world. You've got go-karting. I go-karted on a ship in the middle of the Mexican Riviera. It was absolutely fantastic. You've got bowling. You've also got ice skating. You've got so many different activities you can do, from even indoor skydiving aboard these ships. It's quite remarkable the number of activities that are available for kids and those that are young at heart.
Yeah, and so and that's the thing. It's been such an evolution in cruising, hasn't it? How these ships have changed and how what they're catering to now, along with incredible theatre production. Like you said, you can do all sorts of activities. Some of them have got some of the biggest water parks in the world on these boats. So it is amazing the evolution of how far we've come. What about for multi-gens? How do you make sure that you cater for all of them, and what would you go for there? Say if you wanted to go with your parents and maybe your kids as well.
I actually really love cruising my parents because it's a different experience traveling with your parents as children or as an adult. And what I really love and what I'd recommend when you're cruising with parents is to kind of give them space to really enjoy what they like to do. For instance, my dad is a huge foodie, and we will go on our own and really enjoy those specialty dinners, and savor that time together. So cruising with maybe your parents who are in their older 70s or 80s, give them time to really unwind and explore the ship and do it at their own pace. When I'm cruising with, for instance, my siblings, we do fun things like go have a couple of margaritas and have a great show and watch and play bingo and really get into that spirit of that party atmosphere. And then when I'm cruising with my daughters, and they all have very different interests, I would say from experience, many of the best memories I've had with my middle daughter who's studying history is going out on those port excursions where she can really go and see history come alive. And those port excursions are such wonderful memories to build together and such a bonding time for me.
And there are also so many different cruises. So explain to people what's the difference between an expedition cruise and a normal cruise and then river cruising.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll start with ocean cruising as probably the most popular and what people know most of. Ocean cruises are, medium to large ships. They're not usually smaller ones. They're the ones with a lot of different activities, with different types of cabins. You're watching your Broadway style shows, lots of different eateries, and also you'll have sea and port days. So you'll have some days where you're just cruising from one port to the other, and then other days when you're on land. When you're looking at river cruising, I love the slow paced experience of river cruising, and really that you're so close to shore. The bonus of river cruising is that you don't have thousands of people on board. You might have only 100 or 200 people, and it's literally just stepping off land to explore your next port. There isn't a lot of entertainment, there isn't a lot of activities, but it's about that immersive experience of being at the ports. Expedition cruising is wild, and you can do anything from Antarctica, which I've done, to exploring the Galapagos Islands, to even close to home here in Australia in the Kimberleys. Now, expedition cruising can be luxurious and it can be quite rugged as well. So it really depends on your price point. But the key about expedition cruising is about the place you are going to. It's not about the ship, usually. It's not about what experience you can have on the ship, but it's really about going and exploring and being that intrepid explorer on land.
Yeah, and going to the polar regions, is obviously on most people's bucket list when they think about expedition cruising. So why do you think, cruises just seems to continue to grow, and the stats from the Cruise Industry Association are showing that, it's now back to higher than pre-pandemic levels, and cruise is just really taking off. Why do you think it's so popular, despite it does actually tend to get a bit of bad press?
Look, it does get a bad press, and it kind of gets me a little bit upset about it, because a lot of these people that write things about cruising have never actually stepped on board a ship. I think it gets a bad press because there are these kind of cliched stereotypes that have hung around from maybe the 80s and 90s and early 2000s, where, it was a very traditional style of cruising, and the ships were older and possibly not as sustainable, etc. And then, of course, COVID, where everything came to a standstill, and ships were blamed pretty much for spreading and bringing it to Australia. But the reality is that cruising is, number one, affordable. It's really, really affordable. I just saw this incredible rate to go to the South Pacific, and it's going to cost you less than $150 per night. And that's all your food included and accommodation. Where can you stay in a hotel anywhere for under $150 a night? The other thing is you get to explore so many different places. I've been on cruises where I've been to 4 countries in 7 days. And for me, that's just out of this world. I couldn't do that on a land-based holiday. And thirdly, it just does cater for so many different people. And it isn't just this old generation. Younger people are experiencing the joys of cruising, the unpacking once, the great food, the great entertainment. It's really great value for money holiday.
Yeah, and it seems to have evolved a lot more than you think about if it's comparable to flying. Like, flying, we seem to just be trying to cram more people in, and unless you're in first class. But with cruise, it feels like the new boats are being built all the time to cater for, say, multi-gen with interconnecting rooms and larger suites with spas, and even at the lower end, they're taking into account, aren't they, the fact that travellers are maybe travelling more and that they need a little more space. Is that what you're seeing?
I'm seeing that cruise brands are really listening to what people want. For instance, you might still want that experience of being a large ocean ship, but you don't necessarily want to be in the huge public areas. And so I've seen an emergence of this ship within a ship concept grow in popularity. So you're having these wonderful ships, but they have their private little havens. And so you're still experiencing that luxury attentiveness, but you're getting the advantages of being on a large ship. I think that's one of the trends that have been coming up as well. But also these small boutique cruising where people have been really drawn to that luxurious side of cruising. Cruising no longer is just about eating at the buffet, but really great dining experiences, immersive experiences you can have on board with your chefs or with going out on land and seeing, an orchestra play at a palace. It's there are just so many options out there. And so it's really appealing to a different type of demographic.
That ship within a ship concept is really fascinating because you can your dining experiences, that's the biggest thing that because it's not like being in a buffet with hundreds. You're actually all of a sudden eating with much smaller groups because they're only, and also we were told on that cruise we were on last year that was actually reasonably affordable to do it that way, which is surprising because you wouldn't have thought that was sort of an affordable way to do it. But it seems to be something, like you said, that's growing, and it means that you've got access to an area and without being sort of consumed by the crowds, I guess.
Absolutely, and it gives you that very personalized approach. I think when we did that tour on MSC Arabia, we what I really loved was you went into the suites and they had Bulgari products. I mean, where do you go in a hotel and get luxury products there and your own butler? It's a way of treating yourself without having to fork out for experience on a private yacht, for instance. And you're still getting that attentive service and a wonderful time on board, but it's really personalized and you can live in your own little haven.
Yeah. And we've touched on this a little bit, but what are some of the other sort of big trends and changes that you're seeing as far as maybe the types of people that are traveling and also where the cruises are going? I know one trend that seems to have changed, or one thing that seems to have changed dramatically in cruising, is that you can stay in ports a little bit longer, and that's the only thing that I kind of didn't particularly like about it, is that you're only one day in port and you don't really get to see very much. But that seems to be something that is also evolving and changing to do with, and it was all to do with costs of how long the cruise line could actually stay in the port. Isn't that's what it was all about historically?
Absolutely, you've got it there. It's the cost of the port stays. I know some cruise lines do have these, they try to gear towards having these overnight stays and 1 or 2 stays. So it's almost a luxury for cruise ships to stay in port for more than a day. And I totally understand what you're saying you get to a port and you go, oh, what a wonderful day, but we have to leave at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. So I think that will always be driven by the cost of how long ships can stay in ports. And I hope that grows. I don't think I will see that in larger ocean cruise lines, but you might see it in the more luxury boutique, such as, Azamara or your Penance and things like that. But I have stayed overnight on cruises, but on river cruises. So both when I was cruising in the Mekong, if I can get that out, and also in Europe. So when you're on a European river cruise, It's very easy to dock, and the port fees aren't exorbitant. And I had 2 days to explore Vienna, which was just a dream come true.
Amazing. And what are some of the other trends and changes that we're seeing in the area of cruise?
I suppose the trends that I'm seeing emerging is that cruising is appealing to younger guests. I would say this stereotype that cruising was for older people, 60, 70, 80 years old, there's nothing wrong with that. But I think that was a perception that was quite incorrect. You're seeing a lot more cruisers in their 30s and 40s. And I think the last stat was that the average age of a cruiser was 47 or 48, around that mark. But then you need to take into account these people in their 40s that are cruising. They're probably taking their older parents, or they're taking their teenage kids. So that emergence of cross-generation, intergeneration and younger cruising, I think will grow a lot more in Australia. You see it in Europe. And I don't know if you remember, Kirsty, but when we were in Europe, we would see these groups. Well, I would see these groups of 20-somethings, sitting around the buffet or sitting around bars. And I'm thinking, I don't see that a lot in Australia, but you definitely see it in Europe. And I think it's a more accessible and more acceptable holiday to take in that kind of 20-something age group.
Yes, and I was also surprised to see families, given we were going to Norway, and it wasn't like it was a tropical destination. It was very cold, but yeah, that was interesting to see. Yeah, to see that, and I guess a lot of that is driven by the fact that the way these cruise ships, like we've talked about, have evolved, that they cater for so many different people. So you can actually have, be on the same cruise, have incredible theatre and bars and food experiences, and then also have some activities for the kids as well, and exceptional spas. That seems to be something that's really rising as well. The wellness area, is that what you're seeing too?
Oh, absolutely. I do have one non-negotiable when I cruise, and it is the thermal suite or the thermal spas, because I really love that whole, the hot, beautiful water and being able to just unwind after a day. And what the ships have to offer right now is truly remarkable. Again, I was on an NCL, Norwegian ship in Mexico, and they had one of the best thermal pools and spas that I've ever been to. That was just so relaxing. And there was such an option. You didn't just have, a hot water to soak in, but you had, a steam room, and then you had a salt therapy room, and then you had a cold room, and then you had an ice room, and Viking do something very similar in their spas as well. And so you can have this absolutely luxurious experience where it really is me time on these ships. And I love that they're looking at different things rather than just your traditional spa facial massage. You're looking at different therapies that you can have on board, and that all kind of snowballs into this whole me time, beautiful self-care experience that you can have on a ship.
If someone could only go on one cruise, if they just said to you, look, Honida, I can only do one cruise, that's it, and I've never been cruising before, what would you tell them to do?
Oh my God, that is the hardest question. So maybe we can refine that to say, okay, from my perspective, mother of adult children, want to spend some great time with my husband, and I also want to have a beautiful experience on board and go to a country I've never been to. I would say you need to find an ocean ship where you can have a ship within a ship experience, visiting at least 5 ports, around 7 nights, with some exceptional restaurants that you will absolutely salivate over. I know I can't think of a specific brand, but that would be my checklist for a woman of my age who wants to have a great holiday, not having to cook or clean or drive anywhere.
And a lot of those restaurants now are run by celebrity chefs too, so you can definitely find, that's not a hard ask to find a cruise with great food, exceptional food. Amazing. I think that sounds like a great idea. I think I'd love to do a river cruise. I haven't done one before, and Yeah, I like the idea of meandering along, the waterways of Bordeaux or something. But so anyway, what are your predictions for the future of cruise, and where do you think we'll be in, say, 10 years from now?
Oh, wow. Okay, so Australian cruising, my prediction is that the demographic will get younger. I hope that the government come to play and look at really the costs at all the ports. I mean, the upcoming cruise season is very exciting. We'll be seeing, 62 odd international ships come in from now until April. The problem is that after the international ships leave, we're really left with a very limited market. So what I would like to see, I'm not sure if it's a prediction, but my wish list would be to see that more ports are accessible. Ships will visit Adelaide and Melbourne and the West Coast more so than just the traditional routes of Sydney and Brisbane, South Pacific and New Zealand. And really going into those regional areas. I love visiting places like Eden, where you can actually go and make a difference with the local economy of those beautiful regional ports in Australia. So that's probably my wish list, not my prediction, perhaps.
No, that's great. I love that. It's I love that, and I love the idea of going on a visiting some smaller ports and some different ports too. Yeah, being able to visit other areas. Well, we're running out of time, so our the last question we ask all of our interviewees is what's the most bizarre thing that's ever happened to you on your travels?
My gosh, I have so many, and I need to preface this by saying I'm probably the clumsiest person you'll ever meet. So picture this. I've dreamed my whole life to see the pyramids. It was last November, so nearly a year ago. And I'm with my daughter and we're in this beautiful air-conditioned bus and we go into the pyramid complex in Giza. And I remember turning around and saying to my daughter, oh, if I died now, I'd be happy, not being specifically saying that if I would die or wanting to die. And so in my clumsy haste, I get out of my seat, I go to get off the coach and I fall down the stairs of the coach, hit my head, give myself a mild concussion, starry-eyed.
Oh, no.
The tour guide picks me up. I have this moment of where the hell am I? I see these pyramids ahead of me thinking, have I died or am I really here in front of the pyramids? So I suppose that's...
Oh, gosh. Well, I hope you can remember it all in great detail. And not the fall.
Oh, yeah.
The pyramids.
Absolutely. It was just a funny thing, but it was quite bizarre. It was quite bizarre, but also a very memorable experience.
Well, it's been so great chatting to you, and thank you for your insights into the world of cruise. And we will put all the links to where people can connect to you and learn more about what you're doing and your incredible advice on cruising in our show notes. So thanks for being on the show.
Thank you so much.
I love the idea of a ship within a ship concept, which is like floating on a 5-star resort. So if you would like to learn more about cruising, visit Honida's website, cruisingwithhoney.blogspot.com, and we'll put that in the show notes for you. Our tip this week is the best post-breakup travel destinations in the world. So travel blogger Miss Tourist analysed various metrics, including wellness, amenities, nature and perks, as well as retail, because a bit of retail therapy, some nightlife and safety are all bundled together to reveal the top destinations for a refreshing change of scene after a breakup. So Miss Tourist CEO Julia Saf said, travelling after a breakup can be one of the most therapeutic ways to find solace and regain your sense of self. Whether it's serene beaches of Greece or vibrant streets in Spain, every destination in this list provides a unique backdrop for recovery.
Have you done it, Belle? Have you gone on holiday after a breakup?
For sure. Any excuse for that, right? I had a big breakup. I hit the road, didn't come back for a month.
Why doesn't that surprise me?
It's so liberating. You do feel a bit unprotected if you a bit sort of unguarded. If you've been traveling with somebody else for years and years, and then suddenly you're a solo traveler, I have to say, Buenos Aires is pretty wild for the single girl. But you have to really keep your wits about you in a good way. I mean, I fell madly, passionately in love with the city. Can I say with the city? And I nearly moved there. I was so close to.
Is that what kickstarted your intrepid travels? The fact that you that breakup what kickstarted it? Do you think? What makes you want to go to really off the grid, bizarre places, slightly dangerous?
Well, I'd been traveling in Eastern Europe for a long time before that, so maybe not. I was always doing weird stuff like up on the, camping on the Russian border and, those sorts of odd things. Buenos Aires, I went there for work and like I just had that freedom. I was like, right, I was gone for months at a time. But in BA, I was going down to Antarctica. I took my mum with me and then she left. She had to leave a couple of days before me. So I was chaperoned by my mum around Buenos Aires. And as I kissed her goodbye, put her in the taxi to go to the airport. And then I was walking back to the hotel on my own. And then I realized I was getting curb crawled by this guy. And he's just driving really slow beside me. And he's yelling all this stuff out in Spanish. He's like, hey, baby, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, I don't speak Spanish. And he's like, no problem. Don't need to. The crazy thing about it was, as he's driving beside me, there's like 5 other cars behind him, and everybody was patient because he's talking to the lady. So then traffic doesn't care, if you don't shut up this girl on the side of the road. And I thought, my God, my mum, I've just sent my darling old mum off 5 minutes ago. And that's what I mean about that thing about being unprotected. You go from like having that protection, be it a partner or a mum or something like that, to suddenly like single woman in raging, a city of raging testosterone.
Well, I can understand falling in love with the city. I fell in love with the town. I fell in love with in Italy, when in Pula, when we were in our last spot in Sardinia, I fell in love with that town. I literally think I fell in love with that town. I could move there. Anyway, I have not done it because I married my high school sweetheart, so I have not gone away and run off into the wilds after a breakup. But
that's okay. Well, just in case you do, and I'm not wishing that upon you on your happy married status. If you were to do that, topping the list for those who did not marry their high school sweetheart and need to get away after a messy or heartbreaking breakup is Greece. I have mixed feelings about this. It rated super high for wellness, nature, shopping, restaurants, nightlife, like it ticks all the boxes, and came out with a top heartache healing score of 88. That's very scientific. I would say stay away from Santorini, which is just full of honeymooners. So if you want to heal from a breakup, staring at loved up couples, looking at the sun setting, taking their turn behind all of the Instagrammers and influencers, taking photos of the sunset, staring at loved up couples is not what you want. Go to the party islands instead.
Yeah. And Portugal came in second with a super high rating for affordability. I love how they call it heart rate healing score. But I'm not sure how I feel about, that affordability helping your heart break, because wouldn't you want to splash out a bit on yourself? Like, wouldn't you want to splash your money a little bit on yourself after heartbreak? But look, at finances are restricted. That's exactly it. So finances are restricted, yes, of course.
So maybe the affordability is a concern.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, Singapore, which can provide very good value, and Italy follow. Italy is very romantic, right? Although it is wickedly and notoriously flirty. So if you needed to get your head back into the flirting game, you could go back to Italy and learn from the pros.
And Australia actually came in on the list at number 10. Its highest score was for retail shops and friendliness, which I guess we do have in bucket loads. We do have friendly. We are friendly. We're very friendly. And who doesn't want to find a friend after you've been dumped? So for more other tips on places to stay, break up or not, check out misstourist.com.
Next week, it's Kirsty in the hot seat about why you should skip the South Island and head to the far north of New Zealand next time you cross the ditch. So that's going to be exciting, Kirsty.
Yes, and is debatable from, some people about what you do, which part of the island you go to. But I do think that, you want to avoid the Golden Route, and there's very specific reasons why you should head to the far north. So we'll talk through that next week. And please give us a rating or a review on Apple Podcasts. Click on our profile, scroll down to the bottom to ratings and reviews and hit those 5 stars. And if you're on Spotify, go to our main page, click the 3 dots underneath our photo. And just remember, you can always drop us a line. We love to hear from listeners, so please just drop us a little note at hello@theworldawaits.au.
That's a wrap for The World Awaits this week. Click to subscribe anywhere you listen to your favourite pods. And where can people find you, Kirsty?
I'm at Kirsty Writes on Instagram. That's KIRSTIE Writes, WRITES. And where can people find you, Belle?
You can find me at globalsalsa.com or on Insta at global_salsa.
Thanks for listening. See you next week.